Hello everyone, good day. So now we are in lesson 2, Guiding Principles in Assessing Student Learning. According to Corpus and Salandanan, 2009, we have here some principles of assessment. 1. Assessment of learning is an integral part of the teaching and learning process, meaning assessment of learning is a very important part of the teaching and learning. There will be no teaching and learning without assessment. Second, assessment tool should match with the performance objective. So if you have a tool like a quiz, it should be guided with your performance objective. For example, if your objective is to match the flower with the corresponding color, then you can have a matching type test. And then third, comprehensive assessment requires variety of procedures or methods. If you will only give a quiz and it will determine their grades already, then uh, it did not really show what they learned. So there should be a variety of methods or procedures. Like you should also give performance tests aside from giving quarterly exams. You could also give daily quizzes. Number 4, results of assessment must be fed back to the learners. After checking the papers, there's a need to return it to the students so that they will know their progress. Because it's not good that they already failed and they just learned it that day that they failed. Number 5, emphasize self-assessment. So self-assessment is more on reflecting what you have learned and what you need to learn. So there is a need for teachers to give time for the students to reflect. Usually it is at the end of the lesson, you ask them to share a little of what they know and what they have in mind, some questions and queries, or what is not really that clear to them, you can ask them. Number 6, assessment of learning should not be used as punishment or as a disciplinary measure. One example is that when students are very noisy in the class, we usually give a test for them to be quiet. But it should not be the case because you will be uh, you will be violating the rule on the validity of your exam because the exam should measure what the students learn. Number 7, results of learning assessments must be communicated regularly and clearly to the parents, meaning every quarter, every end of the quarter, you need to show to the parents what are the grades of the students. So there should be a consultation after that, no? So that parents will be aware on the quarterly grades of the students so that at the end of the year, school year, they will be they will not be shocked that their child failed. So there's a need to communicate regularly. You can call them if the students are not really performing well because it's the teacher's fault if nothing was done at the end. Mm. And then number 8, emphasize on real-world application to gain realistic performances over out-of-context grid items. So our activity should be authentic. It should be applied to the real world, not merely a fantasy side. Then number 9, the bell curve mentality should not influence the thinking that failures are always expected. The bell curve mentality implies that we all know that if we have a curve, most of the scores of the students will be at the middle, so average. So if it's 1 to 10, the scores of the students will be in 4, 5, and 6, and less on 9 and 10, and less on 1 and 2. So there will be more on the middle, and then less number on the highest scores and less number on the poor scores or the lowest scores. But we could also expect that all of them got 10. All of them got highest scores. Not only that we will think that it's really the normal, that it's only at the middle. Most of the students will get the middle scores. Number 10, teachers must consider learners' learning styles and multiple intelligences. So in doing our lessons, we need to have an inventory first of the learning styles of the students. Are they kinesthetic, visual, or tactile, or their multiple intelligences, so that we can have a very effective classroom teaching and learning experiences for them. It should be based on their preferences. And then number 11, give positive feedback with not so good ones. So this is a challenge for us, how we will tell the students that he or she needs to improve his or her work without giving him or her frustrations. So we need to give positive feedback. So we can do so if we will start with very good or something like that. So how will you tell the student that he or she needs to improve without hurting his or her feelings? So there should be more on positive than the negatives. Next is we have here principles of high quality assessment. Number one, clear and appropriate learning targets. Learning targets should be clearly stated, specific, and center on what is truly important. So, from Macmillan and Stevens in 2007, you can target the knowledge, the reasoning, the skills, the products, or the affective disposition of the students. Other term for targets is we have objective. So if you say learning targets, that's what we call as learning objective, or others call it learning outcomes. Usually, clear and appropriate learning targets will be taken more in lesson 6 when we will be talking about the Bloom's taxonomy. Number 2, appropriate methods. Appropriate methods implies learning targets are measured by appropriate assessment methods. So some assessment methods that we should know are the objective supply, objective selection, essay, performance-based, oral questioning, observation, and self-report. Those things will be discussed in lesson 6, but for now, appropriate methods is more on matching that the activities or our methodology with the objective. For example, our objective is the students define verb. So our activity or our method or our quiz will be more on defining verbs. Or if we ask the students to match the flower with a certain color. Therefore, our test should be matching type. Or if we ask the students to demonstrate his or her understanding on using the microscope, so our activity should be demonstration or performance based, not a multiple choice exam, something like that. Third is balance. Our assessment should be balanced. A balanced assessment sets targets in all domains of learning. So you need to target cognitive, affective, and psychomotor. Or you can target the domains of intelligence: verbal linguistic, logical mathematical, bodily kinesthetic, visual spatial, musical rhythmic, intrapersonal social, interpersonal, physical, naturalistic, existential. Usually, a balanced assessments make use of both traditional and alternative assessments. When you say traditional assessments, these are the paper and pencil tests. When you say alternative assessments, these are not paper and pencil, like performance-based assessments, demonstration, portfolio. Those are alternative assessments. So it should not only be our assessment on paper and pencil like multiple choice, fill in the blanks, but we also need to have performance-based assessments, which will be discussed on the next lesson. Number four, validity. When you say validity, it is a degree to which our assessment instrument measures what it intends to measure. It also refers to the usefulness of the instrument for a given purpose. It is the most important criterion of a good assessment instrument. This is the most important one. So, if you say validity, nakuha nato ang atong gusto kuhaon. Ang atong test valid kung na-measure nato or nakuha nato ang atong gusto kuhaon. Kung wala, dili siya valid. Next, reliability. Reliability is more on the consistency of scores obtained by the same person when retested using the same or equivalent instrument. Example, naghatag ka og test sa buntag. The same test was given in the afternoon. It is reliable when the students will have the same score or a little difference only, not that much difference. Usually, a reliable test is always valid. But I mean, all valid tests are reliable, but not all reliable tests are valid. I will repeat, all valid tests are reliable, but not all reliable tests are valid. Number six, fairness. Fairness talks about students are given an equal opportunity to demonstrate achievement. Here are some key to fairness. Number one, students have knowledge of learning targets and assessment. Two, students are given equal opportunity to learn. Three, students possess the prerequisite knowledge and skills. Four, students are free from teacher stereotypes. Five, students are free from biased assessment tasks and procedures. So to have a fair assessment, you should first look into the prior knowledge of the students, their background, and other things that should be considered. Number seven is on practicality and efficiency. When assessing learning, the information obtained should be worth the resources and the time required to obtain it. So if you will be giving a test, you need to look into the time element. If you will give a 100 item multiple choice, will it be okay for a 1 hour time allotment? Scoring. If we will give more activities to the learners, can we really give a score to it on our given time? Or our scoring objective? Do we have an instrument for that? And then the cost. So if you have an exam and you have one question and you make use of three bond papers for that, that it stand the cost. So some of the things that we need to consider in the practicality and continuity, one is the teacher familiarity with the method. The teacher should know the strengths and weaknesses of the method and how to use it. Example, if you use multiple choice, how many hours is needed for that? So it talks about the time required. And then complexity of the administration. And then the ease of scoring. Is it easy to score or not? And then interpretation. Is it easy to interpret? And then the cost. For number 8, continuity. Assessment takes place in all phases of instruction. It could be done before, during, and after instruction. So before you give the lesson, you should have something to assess. And then during the lesson, there should be an assessment there. And after the lesson, there should be an assessment so that there will be a continuity of the assessment. Right now, assessment is already embedded in the instruction. So usually we cannot separate assessment with our teaching strategies because it's already embedded. So there is a marriage already of the assessment and the instruction. Authenticity. Authenticity is more on giving meaningful and real assessment tasks. Usually, according to Burke in 1999, authentic assessment must have meaningful performance tasks, clear standards and public criteria, quality products and performance, positive interaction between the assessee and the assessor, emphasis on metacognition and self-evaluation, and learning that transfers. Communication. Assessment targets and standards should be communicated. Should be feedbacking to the students and the parents. So one way of doing that is returning the check papers and giving of cards at the end of the quarter to the parents and to the students so that they will know their progress. Number 11, positive consequences. Assessment should have a positive consequence to the students that is to motivate them to learn. Assessment should have a positive consequence to the teachers. That is, it should help them improve the effectiveness of their instruction. For example, if you gave a test and then the next day a student did not enter the class because he or she is afraid after taking the test, then there is something on the test. The consequence on giving that test is really not, it should be improved because our main objective is to motivate the learners to really learn. Number 12, ethics. Teachers should free the students from harmful consequences of misuse or overuse of various assessment procedures, such as embarrassing students and violating students' rights to confidentiality. So no to embarrassment and there should be a right to confidentiality. Therefore, everything that we do need to be ethical because students need to be protected of their rights. That's all and thank you. Let's try to answer this so that we will be guided on why is there a need to know the principles behind assessment. We have here some questions, lab type questions that are really situational in nature, but uh, are talking more on the guiding principles. Number one, Mr. Paet designed a tool to measure his students' ability to solve word problems with speed and accuracy. What principle of assessment did he consider? A. Assessment should be based on clear and appropriate learning targets. Letter B. Assessment should have positive consequence on students' learning targets. Letter C. Assessment should be reliable. Letter D. Assessment should be fair. So we go back to the given. Mr. Paet designed a tool to measure his students' ability to solve word problems. So this is the to solve word problems with speed and accuracy. Therefore, which principle of assessment did he consider? So we are given here an objective to solve word problems with speed and accuracy, or we are given here a learning target, and it is clear and appropriate, right? Because the students to measure the student's ability to solve word problems with speed and accuracy. Therefore, it's letter A. Assessment should be based on clear and appropriate learning targets. On the given situation, the teacher really had a clear and appropriate learning targets, which is to solve word problems. Because in solving word problems, there should be speed and accuracy. So it's clear and also appropriate to the target. Next, the students of teacher Chris are very noisy. To keep them busy, they were given a test and the results were graded as a way to punish them. Which statement best explains if the practice is acceptable or not? Take note, the students are very noisy and the teacher gave a test and they were graded, meaning it was recorded and placed in the class record as a way to punish them. Is it acceptable or not? The answer is letter D. It is not acceptable because it violates the principle of validity. If we are giving a test, our main reason is to measure what the students learn and not to, to punish them and to make them quiet. A teacher does not give a quiz at all. The students' grades are based only on summative assessment results. Which statement best explains if the practice is acceptable or not? The teacher is not giving any quiz at all. They were only graded based on summative assessment, meaning quarterly exams. First grading, second grading, third grading, fourth grading. Which statement best explains the practice? If it's acceptable or not. Is it acceptable or not? The answer is letter C. It is not acceptable because assessment data should be reliable, coming from multiple sources, meaning in different types of assessment. Like you must have a traditional one and you must also have performance based. For this one, it's really more on traditional summative assessment results, meaning on the exams on the first grading, second grading, third grading, and fourth grading. And you are not giving a quiz. No? So if you fail all the summative exam, then you fail. The students were not able to show what they know on the daily activities because they were only tested on the summative ones. So there should be multiple assessment tasks or assessment tools to be used, not only one, so that learners will be given what is due to them. That's all.